Season 4 is on its way, and the melee meta is up for grabs, up in the air. We don't know who's going to be who, but we will predict who's going to be S tier, B tier, A tier, C tier, D tier, Z tier by using speculation and some data analysis. Well, actually all of the data from the first weekend of Mythic Plus. And it's mostly going to be wrong. Well, I don't think mostly. There's a couple of ones that I'm pretty sure they belong where they will end up in the rankings, but people really want to know where their spec is. So let's hop in with Arms Warrior. I think Arms is going to land itself all the way into A tier. It's getting the Season 1 tier set, which brings back Cleave, giving it, I don't know if it's overall, because we cannot math one tier set against the other, right? We can kind of speculate, but it's essentially potentially giving it more AoE. Now that could be a problem for single target situations, and considering that most people on the PTR are doing fortified keys, because fuck tyrannical, Arms is doing pretty well so far, and I have played my fair share of Arms, and in AoE I've fucking slap, but in single target it's a pain. It's so much of a pain that I legit hope that Blizz kind of buffs single target for Arms a little bit in Season 4, otherwise it's going to be very sad. Otherwise Arms could drop down to B tier if single target remains a little bit of a problem. I hope not. They've been pretty on point with keeping things up to date and making sure that everything functions properly and people have a lot of fun with it. And today's video wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, Outplayed. Outplayed is a free-to-use recording software for hundreds and thousands of games that works seemingly in the background. No, really, after you install it, which you can do by clicking on the link in the description or pinned comment, you can set your game up and have Outplayed start whenever you start your game, as well as automatically record your gameplay in the background. You can then sort and sift through your library and even crop and edit your videos as well. Perfect for content creation or sharing clips. So no matter what game you're playing, fret not, you have Outplayed ready to do everything you want a recording software to do for your favorite game. By getting Outplay for free from the link below, you'll also be supporting the channel and receive our utmost gratitude. Thank you Outplay for sponsoring this video. Kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Assassination Rogue, one of the 2 or 3 specs that have currently not been played almost at all on PTR, or at least did not get any logs whatsoever, so we can only infer from what we know so far, because the tier set that Assassination gets next season is the same one that we have right now. And there's like no new up-and-coming reworks, at least that we know of, and I would be surprised if Assassination or any Rogue spec is gonna get any kind of rework. I would personally hope that Assassination gets a little bit more AoE, maybe a little bit more oomph into Crimson Tempest, maybe the dot itself, so that you don't have to spam Crimson Tempest in AoE, but I guess spamming it wouldn't be the worst thing, but then it might become mandatory in single target. In any case, because Assassination doesn't really get any new changes, no buffs, no changes to tier set, it's probably still going to remain around C tier. Now, C tier, currently in the current understanding of the meta, that means it's clearing, I think it's 29s and 30s at the moment, Assassination, or at least very close to that point. It is, unfortunately, one of the weaker specs in the game in terms of overall keep pushing, but it is doing really well, because you have to remember that if we take everything in the context of the season that we have right now, all specs are actually doing really well. Sure, you have S specs and F tier specs, because there has to be kind of like a difference, otherwise things are boring. But even the bottom tier specs are like 2, 3, at most 3 keys difference between the top at the end of the Season 3. I don't necessarily see why Season 4 would be very different. Sure, we have different dungeons, sure we have different gear, kind of, right? We have access to essentially every piece of gear. That would probably change the spec's performance by at most 5%, I would imagine. But then again, you know, we have high level scaling as well, which can change. But unfortunately, I don't really see Assassination rising any higher than C tier. Outlaw, however, I don't know what Outlaw people are eating on the PTR, but it's fucking cranking, dude. It's... Well, you know, like I said, take all of the data that you see on the screen right now, take it all with a grain of salt, right? With a pinch of salt, with a grain, pinch, both, whatever you want. Because, you know, it's just a couple of people logging, you can see like massive difference between certain performers that are just cranking 400k overall DPS and plus 10s, which is nuts. And other people that are, you know, struggling to bypass the tank. But Outlaw is consistently cranking. Outlaw is essentially a really good spec for Mythic Plus by design. Its real main issue could probably be the lack of AoE scaling, where you probably don't really do much past 8 targets, but it's been consistently really good on bosses, does really good single target damage. Its kit is incredible. As a current rogue main, I can attest to the fact that feint is nuts and sprint is nuts, and you can have almost 100% uptime on those. Probably do have 100% uptime in Season 4 with the increase in stats and everything else. Outlaw is probably going to be S tier, at least at the beginning of the season, because it's just real solid. Usually the beginning of the season is a period of time when people discover things and figure things out. Considering that the dungeons that we have are the dungeons that we've played before, and they're kind of getting nerfed a little bit more, there's not too much to discover. There is a little bit because we have different affixes right now. We don't have the seasonal affix. The specs are in a different situations, like the Outlaw now isn't the same as it was at the beginning of the expansion or in Season 2 at the very least, because, you know, reworks. But I do believe that Outlaw is going to be one of the S tier specs. Survival is around B tier. I kind of want to put it maybe next to Assassination, but Survival is kind of slightly better. Now, I don't know if the slightly better warrants it going up a tier. I mean, people are playing it way more than Assassination, which says one thing. It's doing slightly more damage than Assassination, which is another. But outside of that, I think it's just a much... Over the course of Dragonflight, it performed overall kind of better than Assassination, outside of the beginning of 10.2, I believe, when Rogue specs just cranked. Assassination just received a lot of nerfs. I don't know exactly where Survival will be by the end. I think Survival Hunters got their Season 1 tier set in Season 4 bonus, which was... okay. I mean, you did have a bunch of damage, but that was also nerfed. So... it's a little bit up in the air, but it seems to be doing slightly better than Assassination. Enhancement is kind of like a wild card, because I want to put Enhancement in A tier, maybe close to B tier. It's been a consistently very good performing spec over the course of Dragonflight, and in Season 4 it retains the current version of the tier set, which is very consistent. I probably think it's lacking survivability in the higher end of keys, which is why you don't really see it in S tier with all the big boys, because damage is really good. I don't know, I think some of the best times that Enhancement had were with previous tier bonuses as opposed to now, but I think Enhancement is maybe in its best iteration now, even though it's not at the top of the meta, if that makes any sense. The tier set is really good. I mean, to be fair, as an Enhancement enjoyer as well, I would have preferred to see a tier set where you can, you know, play a little bit of the lightning, but I guess you're gonna be playing more Lava Lash, Primordial Wave, doggies all around this season as well, which some people like it, some people don't, but it is cranking and it does have some of the highest priority damage. I don't know how this will play out in dungeons like Algathar and Knockwood, which are like gigapool dungeons, but we'll see how that ends up later on to the season. It might climb higher, which, you know, I guess it is what it is, but that can be said by anybody or for any spec. I don't know if that applies to Feral, however, but Feral will go into B tier, probably in front of Survival as of this moment. The tier set that Feral gets is the one that we currently have in Season 3, and Feral has been really good in big AoE dungeons since Season 1. I remember, I think, meme or not, Feral was the first spec that I saw, maybe some other people did this beforehand, and more people did it with different specs, but Feral was the first spec to break 1 million DPS in terms of big AoE burst, and that was in Algathar. I remember in Season 1, I think Maysteen was also playing Feral at the time, so the potential for giga damage is there for Feral. With the current tier set, it might even be better. We'll see how it is. I have a feeling that it has the potential to go into A tier, but Every other spec that's A tier is just cranking. I think even if it ends up being B tier by the end, B tier is such a strong tier. Kind of makes me want to dump Survival a little bit lower, but we'll keep it that way because we also have Frost Death Knight coming in from behind as well. Frost Death Knight is doing okay right now. I want to put it into B tier, but I don't know if I should put it in front or behind Feral because Frost right now is in the current season, but it is getting, I think, the Season 2 tier set in Season 4 where you get those fat, juicy Frostworm's Fury, which is, listen, all I can think about Season 4 is Algathar Academy. I do apologize, but it's not Algathar Academy, but what it represents. It represents big, big, big pools, which is something that no matter what you say, or you, everybody loves big AoE. They love big AoE. The most played dungeons on the PTR are the big AoE dungeons. It's not a coincidence, and Frostworm Fury is giga good in big AoE. Now, we don't know exactly how it would all translate into the, let's say, late expansion Frost Death Knight, which I think it has been doing better and better over the course of the Dragonfly season as we come to this day. So I believe that it could potentially be B tier, maybe even higher. Now, Fury Warrior. This has been kind of a surprise for me in the sense that I expected to see a lot of Fury play testing during the PTR. I didn't play it myself. I played mostly arms because I love arms. Arms is better. But I didn't actually see a lot of Fury playtesting, and I don't know if that's because people decided that it's just bad. There are a couple of people that played a little bit of Fury, and most likely in the upcoming Mythic Plus testing weekends, because I think by the time you watch this, it's over anyway. Or, wait a minute, it might be active once again while you watch this, because, you know, the M Plus weekend just finished here. I mean, Fury is getting the Season 2 tier set with a Giga Fat crit Bloodthirst, which was a good time for Fury. I think in Season 2, Fury was a little bit better overall compared to the rest of the meta than it is now. But I feel like it might not just hold a candle that much. I feel like this season's tier set is... I mean, Odin's Fury could have just been way better in Season 4. Maybe. Maybe not, but Fury is what it is. I don't think it's gonna. I'm probably gonna put it in front of B tier, and it might have a slow start because that's kind of how Fury usually is. It might have a slow start, and it usually overtakes arms. It hasn't, weirdly enough, so far in Season 3 rather. It used to be better than arms in almost every other season, but in Season 3 it is not. It is getting a different tier set. So we'll see how that plays out in the end, but I think B tier is safe for now. Havoc is also kind of maintaining its position. I'm not impressed by the performance on the PTR, but it's most likely that the top Havoc players are probably maybe didn't play or log their PTR runs, which could make the spec way better than it shows. I'm gonna put it into A tier because I don't really think it's S tier material currently either. And we're likely not going to see major changes to Havoc Demon Hunter going in Season 4. Alongside Rogue, it has been the class, or in this case the spec, that has received a rework in 10.2. And it's been pretty good. I mean, it exploded at the beginning of the season. I don't remember if it got nerfed at all, but right now it's not like overpowered. It does really well, but it's not consistently S tier. And that's not necessarily because it's lacking damage or anything like that, but there are other classes that deal very high amounts of damage that bring a lot more to a party than what Havoc does, considering that most people play Vengeance when pushing content as well, and the best things that Havoc would bring are brought by Vengeance as well, so you really don't want an extra Havoc just for that. And if you just want damage, you can bring an Outlaw or a Ret that can add a lot more other stuff. And speaking of, boy, oh boy, Retribution Paladin cranking alongside Outlaw Rogue. What a time to be alive. I actually believe that Red will be S tier. At the very most, it will drop down to A tier by the end of the season. I don't think it's going to be any lower than that. I would be surprised, and it would be a fun reaction to this tier list whenever we do it in about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months, probably a little bit before or within launches, the pre-patch anyway, but I believe Ret is really strong. Currently, it's an S tier spec, and it's been long in the making. Ret Paladins deserve their spot. It has an incredible toolkit. Well, it always used to have an incredible toolkit, but now it actually has really good damage, and most of all, really good single target damage, because Ret always had explosive AoE that was really, really good, competitive with some of the best, but now it also has really good boss damage by just playing pure AoE, which is great because not a lot of specs do that. Outlaw does it, and that's also why Outlaw is S tier alongside Ret, and I believe that these two buddies will remain there as maybe the top dog melee DPS specs in Season 4. We'll see if I'm wrong or not. Subtlety is in a similar situation with Assassination. As of recording this video, there are no logs or data on Subtlety for the current version of PTR testing, so it's very hard to tell exactly how sub will play out. However, if I'm not mistaken, the tier set that sub will get next season will be the current one that we have, and after the rework, and unless sub is getting some buffs similar to Assassination in terms of its AoE, it's probably going to be a niche spec. You saw it, I believe people played it in the MDI, which is okay, but that was because of its nicheness. It doesn't have consistent damage like Outlaw does. It actually probably doesn't even have as good of a damage profile like Assassination does, but it's less restrictive, let's say. Subtlety Rogue, that is. And since it's good right now, it's not, you know, turning any heads, I'll put it around B tier. I kind of think Subtlety is overall better than Survival. Data doesn't seem to indicate that, but maybe I'm just putting my hopes into Subtlety because it is the spec that I'm currently maining. Haha, smolder on progress. But we might see more buffs. I am actually expecting buffs to some of the bottom specs here, which would obviously change the prediction, and you might think that I should consider the buffs in the prediction, but maybe I want them to continuously be down here so that maybe the devs can be incentivized to, you know, buff them a little bit. Hey guys, these are fun specs. Can we get a little bit of a buff? Thank you. Unholy is a different story. Now, Unholy in Season 1 was particularly strong, but due to other factors that it's not currently having anymore, I believe there were very OP trinkets, the puzzle box specifically, that was actually 10-15% of Unholy's damage or something like that, or contributing to its damage. I might be wrong on the exact number, but it was turbo strong, and it was better than, I don't know, 20-30 eye level difference in other trinkets. It was just crazy. It was nerfed, so I don't know if the nerf is reverted or if the strength of the trinket will translate differently at about, I don't know, 528, 530 eye level that we'll have in Season 4, but Unholy right now is cranking in the data. And we're gonna have way more AoE dungeons, way more AoE focused dungeons, because, you know, we're going away from the Murazon's Rise and the... You would think Everbloom is big AoE, but it depends on the affixes. But I do believe Unholy has been performing really well in the pure Dragonflight dungeons in Season 1 and Season 2, and since that's what we're getting back in Season 4, I think that's a very good place for Unholy to be. Now, it's looking like it's going to be S tier. Unholy has kind of looked like an S tier spec the entire expansion, and it kind of fell down either way to A and B and kind of just jumped around tiers a little bit, which, I mean, that's interesting because, you know, you never know how good a spec is, but it's fun, and I actually really hope that it's going to be an S tier spec because it's been a while since Unholy has been S tier pure because of what it can do, considering that the tier set that Unholy will have is the current one, which I think is probably the best. It's a very much AoE focused tier set, which of course works even more for an M+ setting, and of course for a more AoE focused M+ setting, outside of maybe Ruby Life Pools and Uldaman? Maybe? Maybe. We'll see. Windwalker, I actually predict it's going to be a little bit better than what we see today in Season 3. I'm actually going to put it a little bit in front of Enhancement as a goodwill gesture because Windwalker was a king dominating Mythic Plus for about an expansion and a half, and now not so much. But I think it's time that we give a little bit of love to Windwalkers. Now, there is a good chance that Windwalker and the Monk class is set for a rework, but we can say that about Death Knights as well. I don't think that's going to happen in Season 4. However, Mistweaver received a couple of new talents. I don't know if the same thing will happen to the other monk specs, particularly Windwalker in our situation. That might change its overall performance, but as we know so far, the PTR numbers are okay. We know Windwalkers can crank, we just need more data on it, and I expect it to be A tier for now, particularly after the buffs with single target, which once again we know that if you can do Giga AoE and have some single target, you're a pretty good spec, specifically melee, as the S tier specs would indicate. And we'll see if by the time Season 4 launches, this prediction falls on its butt, and if it does, or even if it doesn't, we're still gonna have a video confirming or denying or just talking about the overall predictions. And once again, thank you Outplayed for sponsoring this video. Catch you next time.